to a Hope 1032 podcast.
As followers of Jesus, in whom all things were made, we acknowledge the Darug people as the traditional custodians of the country of where this podcast is recorded. We acknowledge their continuing connection to the land and waters, and thank them for protecting this land and its ecosystems since time immemorial. We pay our respects to elders past, present and future, and we extend that respect to all First Nations peoples listening today.
Hope Book Club with Georgia Free. Because life's just better with a book.
Hi, I'm Georgia, and welcome back to another episode of the Hope Book Club podcast. This one is a little bit different, and I have a bonus treat for you, if you will. I want to tell you about another podcast that I host called Finding Hope. If you've never heard of it before, each week we talk to someone who has found real hope in challenging times and made the world a bit of a better place along the way. This week, I speak to probably one of my favourite people ever, Australia's first MasterChef, Julie Goodwin, who burst onto our screens and into our hearts back in 2009. Over the last 15 years, Julie hasn't stopped. From cookbooks, TV segments, radio shows, a cooking school, she should have been on top of the world with her new life. And she was, before it all came crashing down in spectacular fashion. For the first time, Julie shares her full struggles with mental illness and addiction in her brand new memoir, Your Time Starts Now. And you actually have a chance to win a copy of this book. All you have to do is head to hope1032.com.au/win, and that information is in the show notes. Here is a little snippet of Julie's episode. And from the end, you hit the ground like running. We're talking a book deal, cooking segments on the Today Show, travel, Brekkie Radio. I know that I'm covering like a few years here, but really your life just went from thing to thing to thing to thing. How did you handle kind of being thrust into that spotlight so suddenly? Because you don't have time to prepare for this.
No time to prepare, and not a lot of time for reflection or to think about. There's really no planning that can be done when something like that happens in your life, because you're either going with the flow and taking the opportunities. There's no way. And even now people say to me, so where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Oh, no bloody idea. No idea at all. I used to think I would run my family business with my husband. We would grow it until we're at retirement age, and then we would sell it. And then we would go and live somewhere near the sea. That was my plan. That was the sum total of it. And I was happy with that plan, Then MasterChef came along and all these other things came into play, and there was a real FOMO, if I don't take all these opportunities, they're going to dry up, it's going to stop. And I didn't. If I could have had a bit of hindsight, like if I could go back and tap her on the shoulder and say, it's not going to stop. You can pace yourself a little bit. This thing's got some longevity about it. In 15 years' time, you'll still be reaping the rewards of this. You'll still be enjoying the opportunities that come your way. I might have calmed down a little bit. But as it was, I thought, at any time, this could all just go up in smoke. I didn't know MasterChef would still be on the air after so many years. That's extraordinary. A lot of shows have gone by the wayside by now, and with it, a bit of irrelevance drifts away as well. That's how this scene works. But, I really hit the ground running, and I was afraid to stop running.
Looking back, I know you said you don't have time for reflection, but how was your mental health in those first few years? It sounds like it was precarious.
Look, it's kind of, I was living the dream. I don't know whose dream. It was a massive, wild, it was huge. I was living all the dreams. And I just didn't slow down enough for any kind of self-reflection or anything like that. So I think, I'd been running on fumes for a long, long time with no introspection about it at all. And actually, any time that it appeared like there were cracks starting to show, I was belligerent about it. I would not be told that I had any kind of condition that that made me anything less than purely capable of doing absolutely everything that was on my plate. I would not And that refusal to acknowledge depression and anxiety came from years and years of conditioning. It's partially generational. So I was raised by parents who were brought up by parents who were raised in the Depression, and my parents were raised during the war, and it was just you be grateful. You be grateful for what you have. You be grateful that you've got food on the table, a roof over your head, that you've got your physical health, And that's absolutely valid, and I believe that we should be. But I had internalised that so deeply that, to me, any acknowledgement that I was struggling or that it was all a bit too much for me was ingratitude, or that it was an inability to put a positive spin on things, or it was pessimistic, or it was weak, or it was, being a Debbie Downer or gloomy, or just unable to see the bright side. And I was just really unwilling to have any labels applied to me that might indicate that I wasn't a grateful, happy, person who could really appreciate how good I have it in life. And we hear it all the time, and we hear it even now. And I say it's generational, but anyone saying anything is not 100% for them, and the pile-on of people saying, oh, first world problems, how can you complain about that when this has happened in this country over here? And, I am all about perspective and gratitude. However, we have to be allowed to say, I am struggling. We have to be allowed to say, that's too much for me right now. We have to be allowed to say, there's something not quite right. I can't put my face into a smile without really working at it. We have to be allowed to say that. We ought to be allowed to say, without feeling ashamed, I don't seem to be able to slow my brain down unless I have wine at the end of the day, I don't seem to be able to put my feet on the floor with any sense of excitement for way too many days in a row now. I feel like I'm wearing wet woolen clothing and my limbs are heavy. Is that right? We have to be allowed to raise these things without being shamed for it and without feeling ashamed of ourselves for it. We can talk about mental health till the cows come home, but until we permit ourselves to talk about it and not feel ashamed about it, the conversation's not going to go anywhere. I mean, it's one thing for us to all be standing around saying, I will hold you up. Ask me, are you okay? I'll say I'm okay. Are you okay? I will hold you up. But what we need to do is be willing to be held up. And I think that's actually harder, a lot harder.
That is a snippet of the brand new Finding Hope episode with Julie Goodwin, which is on Finding Hope with Georgia Free. You can search for that wherever you get your podcasts or find that link in the show notes. And as a reminder, you can win a copy of Your Time Starts Now by Julie Goodwin by heading to hope1032.com.au/win. And that information is in the show notes too. Catch you back here soon for another book club episode.